Muzikinis Takelis. Muzikinis Takelis.
So, hello everybody, welcome back again to Muzikinis Takelis, and we continue our journey, our historical journey with RnB, aka rhythms and blues, and we continue with the evolution of RnB. Lucas?
Yes, Thomas. Just a quick intro for everyone. My name is Lucas, and my colleague is Destiny, aka Destiny, or I will call him Thomas. So feel free to follow him. Feel free to follow our channel. And without any further ado, I think we can jump into R&B evolution or rhythm and blues evolution.
Of course.
So we explored the roots of R&B, the gospel influence, the early pioneers like Ray Charles and Ruth Brown, and how the genre began to break through racial boundaries. But the next stage is where R&B really started to evolve into the wide-reaching cultural force. I mean, the 1960s and 1970s, those decades were absolutely pivotal.
I can only agree, Lucas, because the 60s were like this golden bridge between the raw, rootsy sound of early R&B and the more polished, pop accessible, we could say, sounds that we'd hear in later decades. And the right in the center of that transformation was one word: Motown.
Absolutely. And I would like to drift away from our script to remind you that we also talked last season a lot about this Motown records on other genres, that it played actually a really critical role. And here we have Motown records once again. It feels like they were the main players, the main strategizers of music. So
We could say, sure.
yeah, so I think we can jump back in with Motown Records, founded by Barry Gordy in Detroit in 1959. Was a game changer. It wasn't just a label, it was a cultural institution. Gordy's vision was to create the sound of young America, and that's exactly what he did. Motown gave us hit after hit with artists like the Supreme, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, and the Miracles, and of course Stevie Wonder.
And what's amazing is how polished and intentional Motown's sound was. The songwriting, the arrangements, the backing musicians, all of it was meticulously crafted. So the Funk Brothers, the in-house bands, were behind most of those legendary recordings. And the Motown even trained its artists in etiquette and the stage presence. So they were building stars from basically the ground up.
Right, and it was almost like a factory system for soul, only instead of cars, they were producing timeless hits. And while the music was incredibly smooth and catchy, the lyrical themes weren't afraid to tackle real stuff. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On is still one of the most powerful protest albums ever made, released in the 1971. It addressed war, policy brutality, police brutality, environmental damage, and all within the framework of R&B.
Absolutely, and Stevie Wonder's run of albums in the 1970s, from Talking Book to Songs, In the Key of Life, was nothing short of legendary. And you can also remember these names if you were watching our last season. There was also Marvin Gaye, also Stevie Wonder, so you can see how this is wrangled up all together. So he took the emotional core of R&B and added lush synths, funk grooves, and rich lyrical storytelling. He made music that was both soulful and socially aware, and it's still relevant today.
Meanwhile, down south, you had a slightly different flavor of R&B coming from places like Memphis. I'm talking about Stax Records, which had its own raw, gritty style. Artists like Otis Redding, Carla Thomas, and later Isaac Hayes, they brought more of that gospel shout and blues grit into the sound. It felt less polished than Motown, but just as powerful.
True, and Stax was more church meets juke joint, if you will. There was sweat on those records. Otis Redding's voice could break your heart and lift your soul in the same breath. His live performance as Monterey Pop Festival, I think, back in '67, uh, sources say it's an absolute masterclass in emotional delivery.
And let's not forget Aretha Franklin.
Aretha, yeah, Aretha Franklin.
Franklin, the queen of soul, although she recorded with Atlantic, not Stax or Motown, she combined church-rooted vocals with commanding presence and activist power. Songs like Respect weren't just hits, they were anthems for civil rights and feminist movements.
And speaking of evolving sounds, let's talk about the birth of funk, because that shifted R&B's rhythm in a huge way. By the late '60s and early '70s, artists like James Brown, yep, same James Brown again,
Yeah.
were putting the groove front and center. James took the R&B structure, stripped it down, made it even more rhythmic and percussive.
Yes, James Brown with his sharp,
Syncopated, yeah.
syncopated grooves and tight horn sections is often called the godfather of soul, but really he was also the father of funk. Sounds like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag and Get Up, I'm Feeling Like Being a Sex Machine were basically blueprints for modern rhythm driven music, whether that's hip hop, house, or contemporary R&B.
And the thing is, funk paved the way for Parliament's Funkadelic, also another group that we talked. Sly and the Family Stone and Earth, Wind and Fire, legendary groups. They weren't just making danceable music; they were creating entire their own universes. And funk brought in sci-fi themes, like Afrofuturism, elaborated costumes. It was music, theater, and also political statements at the same time.
Exactly, and even within R&B, you started to see subgenres forming. There was quite Storm, which focused on smooth late-night vibes. Think Luther Vandross or Smokey Robinson, later solo work. Then you had Philly Soul coming out of Philadelphia International Records with lush string arrangements and danceable beats. The OJs, Harold Melvin, and the Blue Notes, those guys created the blueprint for disco.
Oof, yeah, disco. That's an interesting crossover. As we got in the late '70s, R&B was blending with electronic instruments and four on the floor rhythms, and it was the perfect storm for the rise of disco. And even though disco had its backlash, a lot of its DNA came from R&B and funk.
That's true, and it's funny how disco became controversial for being too commercial or too flashy, but really it was just the next step in the R&B evolution. In fact, many of the best disco tracks from Chi
From Chick,
to
yeah.
Chick
Chick.
to Donna Summer, yeah, no worries. I currently live in Germany, so were produced and performed by seasoned R&B musicians.
Yep. So if we step back and look at this whole picture, it's clear that the evolution of R&B in the '60s and '70s wasn't just about changing sounds. It was about expanding what R&B could be adding sophistication, experimentation, and most importantly, broader emotional and political depth, you could say.
Right. And it's that adaptability that that ability to evolve while staying emotionally grounded that allowed R&B to remain relevant across generations. Whether you were a fan of Motown, Polish, the Southern South grit, or the spacey funk of George Clinton, R&B had something to offer.
What's amazing is that these different strands of R&B didn't replace each other. They just coexisted, like all together. So they overlapped, influenced each other, and made genre richer. So it was like a teamwork, and you could go from listening to socially conscious Marvin Gaye track to sweaty James Brown jam, and you will still be touching the world of R&B.
And you know what? That what makes this genre so powerful. It's not confined to one formula. It grows with the time. It responds to what's happening in society, in technology, in the hearts of the people making it.
True that. And the 60s and 70s weren't just the era of R&B's evolution. They were the era when it became the emotional and rhythmic backbone of American music. And that foundation, it still supports everything we hear today.
Yeah. So, how do you feel after our this short intro of evolution of R&B?
I feel good. I feel more and uh, more rhythmic and bluish.
Rhythmic and bluish. Okay, okay. What was your main like points that you took out from this? What was maybe you found out something new that you weren't aware of?
Maybe I could say that like that the R&B wasn't pushed away, during the success and the spotlights of, let's say, of the funk, of the disco, during 60s and 70s, but it was it was it was all around. It was a coexistion. So I think
Okay.
this is nice to know that it's not that like it's like a competition, like
Mm-hmm.
trying to push away that one genre takes something from other, and now okay, this is our time, we're gonna dominate. You should listen only to this, not that, because this is more fun. No, so it's like a teamwork, and that one genre can help to create like four or five more popular, let's say, new genres, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time it's not pushed away, it's still living there, it's being there, and every musician, I think, understood that and tried to show just maybe different face of
I would say
of the
maybe
R&B.
I maybe would disagree with you that they all showed face. I think they thought at first that this genre will be like dying and something like disco or funk will overtake it. Just as a evolution. But R&B was so strong from its nature or its like main points that those like side genres that died or went in maybe not the correct route, which didn't let them to fully be so reused or redone to today's society's like norms or standards or needs, musical needs, which could be also a huge thing. So I think that the R&B stayed in a correct lane, letting them to start their own thing and then dying because of making incorrect decisions,
Okay.
or that couple of like societies of not couple societies but couple groups in the society made those genres like only understandable or for everyone to familiar it with one type of people of group, and it made just completely like a dead genre, because the problems that that group had was bigger than the music that they created. So yeah, maybe let's not stick too much here, and let's move into the to the second block, which we will check in the contemporary R&B and its influence. So we will go into smooth modern R&B, and we have looked at the birth and evolution of R&B through 60s and 70s. Now let's move into more recent decades, because R&B didn't just survive, it evolved again. From the 1980s onward, R&B took on new identities, fusing with pop, hip hop, and electronic music. It found a new glossy polish and global audience.
And if the 60s and 70s were about soul, funk, and the grit, the 80s were about innovation, crossovers, and production. So one name towers above the rest, Michael Jackson. While he started in the 70s with the Jackson 5, it was in the 80s that he took R&B and pop music in general to an entirely different world.
Totally. His album Thriller cut. Thriller. Gerai, 1, 2, 3. Totally, his album Thriller is still the best-selling album of all time, and what's remarkable is that it's rooted in R&B tracks like Billie Jean's and Human Nature, blend rhythms and blues foundations with cutting-edge production, synths, and funk elements. He took R&B global, and he did it with moonwalks and music videos that became cultural moments.
And let's not forget about the Prince. One man, Jean Blender. Prince took R&B, funk, rock, jazz, and psychedelia, and wrapped it all in this flamboyant, androgynous package. And albums like Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, and 1999 were sonically rich, emotionally raw, and also, you could say, soundly adventurous. So he was like the spiritual successor to both James Brown and David Bowie.
Prince really challenged boundaries, didn't he? Not just musically, but socially. He refused to be boxed in by genre, by race, by gender norms, and that freedom, that experimental spirit, became a big part of modern R&B. And then, heading into 90s, R&B collided head-on with another musical force, hip-hop.
True, and that collision produced some of the smoothest, most iconic sounds of the decade. Think of groups like Boyz II Men, TLC, and Vogue, or soul artists like Mary J. Mary J. Blige and R. Kelly. They created a style that was sleek, romantic, emotionally intense, but also rhythmic and grounded in hip-hop beats.
Mary J. Blige even earned the title Queen of the Hip Hop Soul because of the way she brought those worlds together. Her debut album was the 411 in the 1992s, was the blueprint for the 90s R&B, and had hard-hitting beats, vulnerable lyrics, and real edge. That whole era of R&B was about feeling love, heartbreak, pain, and pride.
And production styles also changed the game. Producers like Teddy Riley brought in the New Jack Swing sound, this irresistible fusion of R&B vocals and hip-hop rhythms. So you heard it in Bobby Brown, Guy, and early Janet Jackson. Then later, producers like Babyface, Jimmy Jam, and Terry Lewis and Timbaland made R&B smoother, more radio-friendly, but still deeply emotional.
Yeah, and we have to not forget Janet Jackson is a perfect example of this. Her album like Control and Rhythm Nation 80/40 tackled everything from self-empowerment to social issues, all while giving us bangers you could dance to. And then you had Tony Braxton with that husky voice, and Aaliyah, who brought futuristic cool to the sense.
Yep. And the late 90s to 2000s, well, that's when R&B reached a kind of commercial peak with, well, you probably already heard Destiny's Child, Usha, Alicia Keys, Nea, Ashanti, and of course Beyonce. They dominated the charts, and they didn't just like sell records. They shaped like the new culture, and starting with the fashion and ending with the slang, the videos, everything was R&B.
Usher's Confession album, a classic. Over 10 million copies sold in the US alone. Tracks like Burn and Yeah defined an era, and Beyonce, wow, she took R&B to new heights with artistry, visuals, and lyrical depth. Her later albums like Lemonade are both deeply personal and politically powerful.
And we cannot forget the emergence of neo soul in the late 90s and early 2000s. Artists like D'Angelo and Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, Maxwell, and Music Soul Child brought R&B back to its roots. Warm analog production, conscious lyrics, live instrumentation. It was kind of like old school R&B renaissance.
And we can also talk about neo soul was like a love letter to classic R&B, but with modern twist. The Angelo's Voodoo, for example, was rich, textured, sensual. It reminded people that R&B wasn't just about slick hooks; it was about soul, experimentation, groove, and it paved the way for even more genre bending in the 2010s.
Yeah, and since now we're in the 2010s and 2020s, we're in this golden age of alternative R&B. Artists like Frank Ocean, for example, The Weeknd, Yene Aiko, CZA, H.E.R, and Brand Fayez are pushing the boundaries of what R&B means today and what does it even mean. So they're moody, introspective, sometimes minimalist, more about vibe and atmosphere than the structure.
Frank Ocean's Blondie, that album broke every rule. No drums on some tracks, free form structure, themes of queerness, spirituality, and heartbreak. It's experimental but deeply emotional. He took the tool of R&B and built something entirely new. It's like R&B, and finally entered the art gallery.
Yep, and also mentioned the Weeknd. He took the alternative R&B aesthetic, added cinematic grandeur, and became one of the biggest global pop stars. So from House of Balloons to After Hours, his sound is equal parts Michael Jackson, goth, and sci-fi noir. His R&B basically reimagined for the digital age.
What's so exciting is how R&B keeps absorbing everything around it: jazz, trap, electronic, even indie rock. The genre is always morphing, but it never loses that emotional core. It still speaks about love, loss, desire, identity, and it's doing it in ways that sound feels totally fresh.
And the production, it's now we could say there's a new level, new layer of cinematic. So it's cinematic, it's layered. You have artists producing whole albums in their bedrooms that sound like they came out of like brand new quality, super quality $1 million studios. Technology has like democratized R&B, but it's also made it more like intimate, more personal.
You said it right, actually. Today's R&B feels like a conversation. It's like someone whispering the truth into your ear at 2 a.m. There's still room for bangers, but there's also room for vulnerability, for experimental soundscapes, for genre-less storytelling.
And well, we like we just starting to touch, but overall we haven't even touched like overall how R&B is now truly a global genre. Like if you imagine, if you think about it, like because you have some sub branches like Korean R&B, Afro R&B, Latin R&B. So basically, it's we can find it everywhere in just different maybe regions with some different cultural touches. And artists across the world are just embracing the genre, adding their like own maybe techniques, because the more popular, the more it gets saturated, and the more you want to make it like also original and something unique. So it's yeah, so that's how it's reaching massive audiences online.
So whether it's sung in English, Spanish, Korean, or Yoruba, R&B remains what it always was: human, honest, rhythmic, a vessel for expressing the soul.
True that. And R&B isn't just surviving in the modern age. It's actually thriving. It's thriving. It's evolving, as always done, and touching more lives than ever before. And the best part is that the next chapter hasn't even been written yet.
Yeah, so we're closing this chapter. How do you feel that we moved in so fast into 2000s and overview of everything? Do you agree with all this that we said, or you don't agree, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I do agree, because that's written, that's history, and that's facts. So yeah, I do agree with facts, and I
It's not
think
about if you agree to the facts, but do you agree about the how it's created, how everything is going on, and so on. So
I mean, yeah. I mean, I totally can imagine, especially some 2000 moments where it actually touched. It actually touched, and it actually had that like difference, and in some way, maybe very uh very wide frames of what R&B can be. It's like you see it's a pop music, but you're like you're trying to like at least me,
Mhm.
at least me, I always try to to encapture to feel um the boundaries and the frames of the genre. Okay, so is this still R&B, or is this still something else? So when you have a listen of something very old from R&B and then something fresh from R&B, you realize that, man, it's truly, I mean, it's truly is very very wide, very fast moving, uh, evolving genre. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think if we jump into our last chapter and we go into
Yeah, let's do
R&B
this.
global reach and future?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, so Thomas, we talk a lot about the roots, the golden eras, the shifts, and the reinventions of R&B. But one thing that's really fascinating and honest, kind of beautiful, is how R&B has transformed from un- unique, uniquely African American genre into truly global musical language. It's gone from churches and clubs of the US to being a core influence in music scene all over the world.
Yeah, and the great thing about this, it's that R&B is no longer attached or bounded by geography, you know. So it's become this emotional blueprint for artists across continents. And whether you're in Lagos, London, Seoul, or São Paulo, in Lithuania, in Germany, Vilnius, you know, Berlin, doesn't matter. Chances are there's a singer pouring their heart out over a silky beat, and that's the power of R&B. It translates the raw feelings across the cultures.
Absolutely. Take Korean R&B for example. It's booming. Artists like Dean, Crush, and Heisey. I hope, are fuzzing traditional R&B sensibility, smooth vocals, intimate themes with modern K-pop production and Korean language lyrics. It's R&B, but with distinctly East Asian flair. The genre soul remains intact, but the aesthetics evolve.
And on the other side of the globe, you've got the Afrobeat scene, especially Nigeria, blending seamlessly with R&B vibes. Think of artists like Thames, Wizkid, or Omahlay. Thames, for example, blends airy melodies with soulful delivery, you can say, and it's unmistakably R&B in structure, but with some Afrofusion grooves, and it's really recognizable. When you hear her on Whiskey's Essence, that track could sit on American R&B chart and not feel out of place.
Right, and let's not forget UK R&B. That scene's been rich for decades, from Sade in the 80s to Craig David in the 2000s, and now to current stars like Georgia Smith, Mahalia, and Cleopatra Nikolic. British R&B tends to have this cool, understated quality, moody, jazzy, intimate. It's not trying to imitate American R&B. It's building something unique from it.
And even the Latin R&B is rising fast. Like artists in Colombia, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic are fusing bachata, trap, reggaeton, and R&B, of course. So one standout is Kali Uchis, bilingual, genre fluid, and totally mesmerizing. Her music sits somewhere between 60s soul, psychedelic R&B, and Latin pop, and you could say it works.
This global reach shows that R&B isn't just a genre anymore. It became a vocabulary, a way to express vulnerability, seduction, heartbreak, or joy. Regardless of where you're from or what language you speak, the style can bend and adapt, but the emotional foundation stays true.
And technology has also played a massive role in that, and you can think about it very easily. Like 20 years ago, you needed a label, studio time, and a distributor. Now you can produce a whole R&B project on your laptop and upload it to the world overnight. And we have the platforms, you know, like SoundCloud, Bandcamp, and YouTube that gave rise to a whole new generation of do-it-yourself, you can say, like artists.
And we have to not forget Brent Faiyaz. For example, built a loyal following from homegrown recordings. Give On exploded. Give It On exploded after Drake featured him. Suddenly, his baritone voice was everywhere. There's this intimacy in modern R&B that feels like someone recorded it in their bedroom at 2 a.m. because sometimes they actually did.
Yeah, and also we have the streaming.
Yeah.
The streaming platform. So streaming changed the way we listen to R&B too. So it's no longer just about radio singles or chart positions. It's about the vibe and the mood. And the playlists like RnB, wow, how smart is that? or bedroom jams on Spotify helped redefine what people expect from the genre. And that encouraged artists to experiment more, definitely not less.
Playlists like R&B.
Yep.
This one is good.
It's like it was the music, mu and zik.
Yeah, it's like for dyslexic people. R&B. Okay,
It
so
works, it works.
yeah, if people listen, they listen. So okay, good laugh. Which leads us to the future, where R&B, where is R&B going next? I think part of what's so exciting is that there's no one path forward. Some artists are leaning into nostalgia, like Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars, and Anderson .Paak, channeling the 70s. Others like SZA or Summer Walker are exploring fractured emotions, self-doubt, identity, almost like therapy set to music.
Oh yeah, CZA's SOS is a great example because it's raw, messy, and at the same time beautiful. So she's singing about like heartbreak, self-sabotage, survival, and all in this genre blurring package. The production isn't afraid to, to sparse, awkward, or even chaotic at times. It reflects real. It reflects like real emotional complexity, and that's very, very R&B.
Then you've got artists like Stevie Lacy, who's mixing funk guitar, indie aesthetics, and R&B vocal stylings to create something totally new. That's and let's be real, R&B is also getting quieter, more open, more inclusive. Artists like Kehlani, Frank Ocean, Victoria Monet, Troye Sivan, they're redefining what romantic expression of R&B looks like.
True, and it's kind of nice, to see that growth, because like R&B is finally becoming a space where different genders, orientations, identities are being seen and heard without apology. So the genre is returning to its roots of expressing deep truth, but doing so with more honesty, freedom, and vulnerability than ever before.
And I think audience are responding to that. People don't want perfection, they want connection. That's why stripped down emotional performances are resonating more than ever. It's not about the vocal acrobatics anymore, it's about the feeling. A well placed pause or whisper can hit harder than a high note.
And I think that was the most important heartbeat of R&B, like emotion first, always has been. And even as the sound continues to morph, pulling in everything from lo-fi to trap to house, the heart still remains there. A voice telling the truth over the rhythm.
So, to bring it home, R&B future isn't about repeating the past, it's about honoring it while moving forward. As long as there are people with stories to tell and feelings to express, there will always be R&B. And as long as it stays honest, it will stay timeless.
Totally true. Totally true. And R&B started as the voice of unheard, and it's now became a universal form of emotional expression. Emotional expression, which is extremely important thing of human of human psychology. And where does it go next? Well, that's up for, I guess, the next generation of storytellers, producers, and of course the listeners.
Yeah, and I think we can go in of couple closing thoughts of R&B. We travel quite a distance today from the smoky clubs and gospel churches of 1940s to do-it-yourself bedrooms and global playlists of 2020s. R&B.
Yep,
It's
R&B
still
always
funny.
wins.
And though it's all R yeah, R&B has remained one of the most vital, versatile, and emotionally honest genres in all of the music.
And it's kind of staggering when you lay it all out just like that. R&B isn't just a simple style. It's the whole legacy been been laid down through the this 80 sorry years. It's something alive. It breathes, it adapts, it evolves. It's floating all around the other music, so it's always it's always there. It's always kind of sneakily there, and it's been the voice of rebellion, of the romance, also the struggle, identity, empowerment, and of course the pain and the joy. And no matter the decade, no matter the beat or instrumentation, the production, that core, the soul of it, still remains, like blessed and untouched.
And I think about it like that's the magic, isn't it? R&B has never been afraid of change. In fact, it thrives on it. We saw that with Ray Charles infusing gospels into secular sound, with Marvin Gaye pushing boundaries of subject matter, with Beyoncé turning heartbreak and cultural pride into full-length visual experience, with SZA and Frank Ocean making fragmented, non-linear storytelling the new norm.
And it's nice for the genre, because when there's a change, and people like something new. So if it's something new, people like to listen to something new, so to check it out. So it's always good for the genre. And it's not just about the stars and the trends as well. It's about the permission. So R&B has always been about giving like the permission to feel, and to admit that they're vulnerable, that it's okay to be vulnerable, and to say that I'm not okay, or that I want you, that I miss you, without hiding it, without the shame. So that emotional availability, that openness, it's actually powerful, and it makes you feel seen.
Yeah, and it's helped so many people process life. Like, think about how many of us grew up listening to sad R&B song when we were going through a breakup, or smooth slow jam when we fell in love. These songs mark us. They sit beside our memories. They hold space for us emotionally.
I cannot agree actually with that, because like truly a lot of I think a lot of people and a lot of listeners can associate with that. And on top of that emotional power, R&B has also helped shift the whole culture. So it played a role in the civil rights movements, the feminist movement, the LGBTQ plus movement. Maybe there's gonna be a new movement. It challenged the ideas about masculinity, gender, class, and race. And it wasn't always loud in its protest, but it was persistent. And persistency, as we say, persistency is the key. So persistent in humanizing people whose stories were often left unheard.
I would say you're so right, and honestly, that's something I think a lot of newer fans might not fully realize, how radical it was in its early days for black artists to be so vulnerable in public, to sing about their desires, their fears, and their heartbreak. R&B helped carve out that space, not just in music but in culture.
Yep, and when you consider the artists that build modern music, from Aretha Franklin to Luther Vandross, from Anita Baker to the same D'Angelo, and from Usha to H.E.R or H.E.R, you realize that so much of what we take for granted in pop, hip hop, and electronic music today would actually not exist without the foundation of R&B, or it would exist in a maybe completely different sounding. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not just history, it's DNA. R&B is in everything now. It's in the structure of pop songs, the cadences of rap verses, the layering of indie music, even textures of electronic tracks. And I think that's one reason why it keeps coming back in new forms, because it already lives inside the music we love.
Uh, True, actually true. And it's so exciting to think about what's coming next because you've got teenagers today who, let's say, who are discovering Dawn Hathaway on the same like TikTok or remixing 90s Aaliyah a cappellas with the trap drums. So we've got artists experimenting with AI-generated vocals, immersive soundscapes, and well, big time global collaborations, and the possibilities for R&B in the next well 10-20 years you can see endless.
And what's important is that it's still grounded in true. I think that's the one true line from the very beginning, from Ruth Brown to Summer Walker. R&B artists are storytellers. They're not hiding behind layers of irony or digital gloss. They're stepping forward and saying, "This is what I feel. This is my story."
And no matter what the soundscape sits in, old school or experimental, when R&B is good, it's like an old friend grabbing, your shoulder, looking in your eye and saying, "Yeah, I get it, man. It connects. it connects." And like somehow it never gets out of the style.
So for anyone listening who just started their journey into R&B, our advice is simple: explore everything, go back to the classics, dig into those deep album cuts, don't just listen to the hits, follow the feeling. And for longtime fans, keep supporting the new wave. R&B lives because we love it into the future.
Yeah, and like whether you fell in love to, Luther, or you cried to Brandy, or you danced, and you definitely danced to H.E.R, or lost yourself in I don't know, the Weeknd's darkness. It all matters. Those are the moments where R&B meets life in different perspectives, and that's why it will always matter.
So from us here at Muzikinis Takelis, thank you for taking this journey with us. We hope you felt the beat, heard the stories, and maybe even rediscovered the power of rhythms and blues, or R&B.
Yeah.
R&B, it's when we say R&B, it's written like we are, and B as B. It's not R&B, just letters with end.
Man.
So that's why it's really funny. And yeah, I think with finalizing thoughts, with memory, movement, message, and the magic behind everything, it's really interesting, huge genre. I would say it's like modern day main free of music.
Yeah, and it's nice that it teaches to be open, to new sounds, to new maybe blends, to new directions, and it's like it's totally not afraid to explore new new, like, how can you say, like, new digital outfits, like new digital outfits. So I would even say, as far as I've been into this music history stuff, like, I see that every decade you can paint different different outfits, different view, different movement and style. So it's nice that R&B not only incorporates and supports every genre just by by chords, by vocals, by meanings, by those all musical technical things, but also it's just always open to completely expand the frames, the boundaries of that style. So I think I don't know. I could say that after 80 years, it can become really hard to actually just to say where it's the end, where it's the strict end of the genre, where it doesn't, where it's completely not R&B, track, where there's no part of R&B off in some track. You have to be really listening to a lot of music and to church and say, okay, well, this is probably has some touches of R&B, and this is out of it. It's kind of nice that it teaches to just to explore more and to understand the connection between all of this.
And maybe now we will also be like listening to music, and we will like thinking, okay, I can see the small structure of R&B maybe here, and maybe getting more sense why some music are so deep about the emotions or sad emotions even.
True.
And just you will know why it came in, from where it came in, and what was the reason. So I think, to closing up everything, I would like to thank everyone who listened, who came along with us in these 2 episodes. There were there was a lot of information, a lot of things, a couple of good laughs, I would say. And follow Muzikinis Takelis, follow us. We will be giving you new genre reviews every week, for at least for a summer season. And
we'll
that's
try
for
to
me.
deliver you through the journey, and the more and more information, of course, is going to be harder to digest, but hey, I think it's gonna help.
Yeah. And don't forget, in the comments, every video has a link to a mix where Thomas is mixing it and making you like a small sample how it sounds today, this genre that we reviewed. So you're not like listening just to theory, but you're also able to hop into these rhythm and blues sounds and try them. Maybe you will love it. Maybe you will see, okay, I like this era. Maybe I don't like this era. Maybe this era is more for me as a person, or more for me as a person right now going through certain scenarios in life. So yeah, that's it, I think. And bye. Ciao.
Till the next one.
See ya.